Welcome to AMS Healthcare Week on Wellness through Management. I would like to request Mr. R.V. Rao, promoter and CEO of Colors India Incorporation and member of Extension Services Committee of AMA, to share more details about today's program and take it forward. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
It's my pleasure to introduce very noted faculty, Dr. Chirantan Chatterjee, to all of you today. And today's topic, as you all know, is a and hospital management in post-COVID era. And this is a part of the AMA Healthcare Week. The subject was wellness through management. So there's a series of lectures being conducted throughout the week. And this is, I think, the third or second in line with this third one, I think. Okay. And it is my privilege on behalf of AMA and on my personal behalf to introduce Dr. Chirantan Chatterjee. And Mr. Chatterjee is a visiting fellow at the Hoover Institution. Chatterjee was previously Edward Teller National Fellow at Hoover Institution. And he is an economist with research interests in economics of innovation, applied microeconomics, pharmaceutical economics, and global health. He is currently an associate professor in public policy, business policy, and economics at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. He also holds ICICI Bank Chair for Strategic Management. He has been published in top peer-reviewed journals like the RAND Journal of Economics, the Journal of Health Economics, the Journal of Law and Economics, Research Policy, Production and Operations Management, the Journal of Business Ethics, Social Science and Medicine, Health Policy, Planning Economics and Political Weekly, and Journal of Antitrust Enforcement. He is also being published for Brookings Press, Oxford University Press, and National Bureau of Economic Research, like many journals like this. His dissertation work on economics of innovation and intellectual property in the global pharmaceutical industry was supported by National Science Foundation. In 2015, his research was cited as NSF Science of Science Policy. In 2017, Chatterjee was invited to chair the roundtable in IP and Access to Medicines in 2017 Annual Conference of European Policy for Intellectual Property in Bordeaux, France. He is also consulted with the World Bank and the Competition Commission of India. His input has been cited in 2015 by Tarun Committee report of Niti Aayog, currently India's Planning Commission, as you all know, and in formulating innovation and entrepreneurship policy for the Indian economy. At the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, where he was previously a faculty member between 2011 and 16, and Chatterjee conceptualized and chaired the first India Conference of Innovation, Intellectual Property, and Competition, the first of its kind international innovation policy conference in India. The conference was convened again in 2018 with Chatterjee co-chairing the event as a faculty member in economics and public policy at the Indian School of Business, where he was also Bharati Institute and Max Institute Research Fellow in Public Policy and Healthcare. Chatterjee's deep passion and Indian healthcare markets for democratizing the education was also resulted in first ever MOOC on healthcare markets in India in 2016. In his spare time, he regularly contributes op-eds on economics, public policy issues for national dailies like Live Mint, Economic Times, Times of India, Business Line, Hindu, Hindustan Times, and many more. He earned a PhD and an MPhil in public policy and management from Carnegie Mellon University in 2011. Prior to his doctoral education, Chatterjee worked as a business journalist for the Economic Times, India's leading business daily, after ending his BTech Civil Engineering from IIT, Roorkee, and MBA from IIM, Kolkata. So he has a lot of credentials to his credit, and a well-experienced, well learned faculty we have today in Dr. Chirantan Chatterjee. And I hope you all will have a lot of take home by the end of this 45 minutes lecture. And you all, I hope you all enjoy it also parallelly, because health is very important these days. And with this, I would request Mr. Chirantan Chatterjee to take over.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your generous introduction. So when the Ahmedabad Management Association asked me to deliver this lecture, I was a little conflicted in taking up the responsibility to talk about healthcare, to be absolutely honest, because we are going through a very challenging times, both globally and locally, to talk about what should be the optimal healthcare policy and management issues therein in nations, rich and poor. Although I have been working in healthcare issues for the last, I think, 15 odd years since I did my dissertation on the Indian pharmaceutical industry, the last 12 to 15 months has left all of us health economists everywhere quite bamboozled in some sense in terms of what should be the optimal way society should respond and think about allocating healthcare. So with due apologies, and also with like a caveat that I may not be the right person to absolutely comment on what is the normative way in distributing healthcare today in India and around the world. But it's important at the same time to notice, to outline some observations from my end in what I'm seeing, how healthcare has been allocated and distributed over the last 12 to 15 months, including in the last second wave in the last 3 months here in India. One thing that we want to think about while thinking about healthcare in India is India as a country is basically 1/6 of the world's population. So whatever the country does in terms of how it distributes healthcare, privately or publicly, what its stance is in terms of quality of healthcare, what its stance is in terms of whether it's taking care of violence against healthcare workers or not, or the role of universal health insurance policy for distributing healthcare to the base of the pyramid, and even intellectual property issues to get access to medicines and vaccines, which we are all debating these days vigorously. Whatever India does has an implication for the world, or whatever India does not do also has an implication for the world. So that as a result, we are in this envious position of trying to sort out our frictions in the healthcare ecosystem in such a way that the world benefits at large. And also some of the solutions that we have here can be scaled out of India to other economies, like in Brazil or in Indonesia or in South Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, etc. So every conversation today for the next 40 odd minutes should be benchmarked with that broad philosophical realization that solving health in India is not just India's problem, but the world's problem. And also how we behave in solving health in India has an implication for how the world might look tomorrow or may not look tomorrow. That being said, I had outlined to Mukund that I would like to break out my observations in about 4 segments, and then open up for Q&A from your side. The first segment that I wanted to chat about was narrate 2 patient case studies of people close to me whom I observed going through the harrowing experience of trying to get appropriate COVID care in these last 3 months. One of them is a staff at IMA. The other is an uncle of mine. One was located in Ahmedabad, west of India, Gujarat model. Other is located in East India, Kolkata, if you want to call it the West Bengal model. But both had to go through the same set of challenges that you would not want any ideal patient to go through. For example, where do I look for hospital beds? Having received an hospital bed, what is the process through which I get my testing and at what periodicity for the RT-PCR results? If things are going bad in terms of the oxygen levels, how am I going to get access to a ventilator? Is this ventilator of the right quality that it's supposed to be? Are the doctors equipped enough? They are themselves stressed out, and are they keeping an eye on my my CT scans, if there are dark spots or fibrosis of the lungs, the progress of the fibrosis in the lungs, etc. Both patients in both the hospitals, these are big hospitals, both in Ahmedabad and Kolkata. I'm seeing the same journey of the patient. And then we have this issue of giving them medicines. So where do we get remdesivir from? Government has price capped remdesivir at a certain price level, but you know, we can get remdesivir at in the black market at a faster clip. So the question is, who will pay for that price? And do we have the purchasing power at the family level for these two patients to pay for the prices at which remdesivir or tocilizumab is available at a faster clip? And then finally, when do we discharge the patient? What is the treatment protocol advice on this? And even after discharge, we know that there are a lot of post-COVID complications happening in every household around us. Who is keeping a track on that? And the mental stresses that each families are going through, trying to manage all these issues, and the kind of financial shocks that they have received while trying to take care of the COVID situation, and also post-COVID in mucormycosis. I mean, we all know that people are spending like a lot of their savings in trying to salvage their near and dear ones. And both the patients went through. Unfortunately, my uncle could not be salvaged and he passed away early in May. And this despite the fact that there were people to pull strings, as we do in Indian society, which is you talk to the CEO of a hospital, you get the connection to the highest of bureaucrats, you try to make sure that he gets an ICU bed. And all the necessary things that had to be done were done, but we still could not salvage it. And at the end, he had a daughter who is a doctor himself. My dad is a doctor. And despite all the clinical and lobbying and whatever you want to say, the way Indian society operates, we could not salvage him. In Ahmedabad, my colleague is still suffering from attacks of mucormycosis. Treatment goes on. We know what has happened in terms of availability of amphotericin B, etc., and how this has been routed through this company government channel, and the supply of this amphotericin B has been extremely tightly monitored, etc. And it's also costly medicine. So overall, things are not looking great at all when I look at these two cases. And these are not just the two cases. Obviously, in the last 15 months, I have had very close brushes with friends, families, acquaintances across the country, Northeast, West, South, in terms of how death has hit every household and how people have scrambled to go beyond the markets, go beyond what the social planner is doing of any shade, whichever political party they may be, to make sure that healthcare happens to the patient who is suffering from COVID and the households as well. What do we learn from this? What we learn from this, I suppose, is that there are several things that could be completely overhauled in Indian healthcare. In the next 10 years, I don't see the opportunity of letting the markets rule in the context of healthcare. I know this is a management association meeting and I'm a management school professor and I'm supposed to champion entrepreneurship and private sector in healthcare. But the deep cuts that society locally in India and globally in India has faced in healthcare requires a panacea that has to be driven by the social planner, by the government. So the public nature of healthcare is extremely going to be important in terms of how we are going to define new business models, how we are going to get healthcare to the last mile, or how we are going to finance healthcare in terms of universal healthcare coverage. Whatever opportunities were there for the private sector to operate, be that in medical devices, pharmaceuticals, for hospitals, for other aspects of the healthcare value chain, before COVID, which we were seeing happening in India in the last 10 odd years or something, 10 or 20 years, I think that opportunity will slowly, and because of this virus's hand, slowly we'll have to accept the fact that healthcare is a public good. We were trying to privatize it, but we have to accept the fact that healthcare is a public good. And we have to take care of every solution and entrepreneurial solution with that kind of a mindset. And that's something I think not just India, but almost all, even richer economies are going through this kind of a journey where they have to accept that healthcare and also education is going to be more and more we have to treat it as a public good, essentially. The second thing that I think needs to be immediately addressed is the role of all kinds of stigma, tradition, superstition, and fake news, misinformation that has challenged us to treat COVID in India and globally. It has happened in the earlier era also when Ebola struck or Zika struck, but now in the Twitter age that we live in, this has been amazing in terms of the impact and the negative impact that it has created in society. And I don't need to re-stress to you what has happened with the coronal episode, or how, if you look at some of the industry numbers, the kind of traditional medicines people are consuming without any evidence, scientific evidence of they paying health outcome effects, has really spiked in the last 12 to 15 months. People are vulnerable today. And I suppose that gets reflected in this consumption. And here, there is a scope for intervention, both from the government side, from the from the firm side, as well as from entrepreneur side, in solving the stigma and misinformation issue on the demand side of healthcare. We know that healthcare also is not just a function of what the patient is demanding or the patient's ability to purchase or access healthcare, but what is being provided in terms of healthcare to patients. And this provisioning aspect of healthcare is a value chain. We know that there is a role of doctors, there is a role of hospitals, there is a role of medical devices, pharmaceutical firms, testing firms, etc. And there is also a role of the pharmacist in the ecosystem. Now, the supply side of this ecosystem is quite complex. We have not had, despite being called the India as the pharmacy of the world, we have not had a great demonstration of getting our act together on the supply side in terms of the healthcare ecosystem, which is why people have scrambled for bed allocation. And then suddenly you see certain region specific solution by socially minded folks in terms of dashboard for beds, which is why you see these WhatsApp and Telegram channel linkages where you share that I need oxygen cylinder in Vijayawada. And then there would be this bot which will respond to you saying, okay, you can contact A, B, and C, and they will potentially get you that stuff. So these are all these disparate attempts that citizens in the country have tried to use to solve the complexity and lack of performance on the supply side of the healthcare ecosystem. But this cannot be a sustainable solution for tomorrow. I mean, if we have a, God forbid, we don't have a bad third wave or even for any another pandemic, this is not going to be the sustainable way through which you can solve healthcare. So I suppose an immediate intervention is required in taking care of misinformation, stigma, non-scientific activities that are not taking forward health outcomes of patients in India. And remember, if you're not taking forward Indian health outcomes of Indian patients, that same point, we are 1/6 of the world's population. It's going to drag down global healthcare. And India as a country will get a bad name globally as becoming potentially a hotspot for all kinds of misinformed healthcare provisioning. And that we want to avoid. The third thing I want to highlight is the respect and care and empathy we can provide to our frontline healthcare workers, which at large we have tried to do, starting from when it had started last March to now. But then there are issues that we have also shown as a society by beating up doctors and nurses. This is the Chinese call it the E-now effect, doctor violence, nurse violence. I don't know whether we are doing enough in terms of protecting our frontline healthcare workers. And even health insurance has been revoked for some types of doctors, etc. Associatedly, going back to my 2 patient case studies that I have gone through, what I noticed was hospitals today, private or public, small or large, unispecialty or multispecialty, located in big cities or small cities, are severely starved of staff. We don't have enough doctors, we don't have enough nurses, which is why final year MD students and MBBS students are being brought into the story to help in basically solving this gap issue in human capital in provisioning of healthcare. Now, this conversation was already happening in Indian healthcare even before COVID had struck. There is evidence from Science done by Nobel laureate Abhijit Banerjee and his co-authors on how we can pool, let's say, registered medical practitioners, non-doctors, with training, sufficient training to at least address less serious disease conditions. Now, we need a more focused effort there, which is science driven. We know that government has been trying to do that, but I'm not so sure that they have been trying to do that wholeheartedly these days. But that is something that I think is a must do going forward in the next 10 years for Indian healthcare, which is you will not be able to solve such shocks that you have received in the healthcare ecosystem with the current capacity of human capital in the ecosystem. We have to solve it by training other personnel. We have to solve it by making people more health aware such that they don't need to run to a hospital at the drop of a pin. They can maybe potentially get addressed with that at home. Home care will potentially rise with the return of the family physician perhaps. And also we might want to use some technology here. So there are various telemedicine and health solutions that are available through technology, which we can educate even the less privileged and see if we can resolve this healthcare human capital lack issues that the ecosystem faces. What are other things that I would love to highlight in terms of overhauling healthcare? I think the other thing that I would very strongly like to highlight is the issue of data to drive science and evidence so as to guide policy. The way we have dealt with data in the last few years is to advance policymaking of a certain flavor rather than to upgrade policymaking of whatever flavor they may have started with. Policymaking is a dynamic process, and ultimately anybody, whether it's a political leader or a business conglomerate CEO or a professor, we are all trying to do it because we care about potentially the patient at the base of the pyramid. And the data and the science will help in upgrading our initially taken stances, whether it's on price controls, whether it's on how beds are getting allocated, whether it's how you are distributing oxygen to different villages of India and estimating the demand for oxygen, or whether, let's say, if you are price capping remdesivir or tests or tocilizumab, that is actually working or inadvertently and unintendedly brewing black market, which actually is causing access concerns. And therefore, data is supremely important. In fact, one of the biggest things that I've tried my little best from my research angle, which is to get hands on Corona insurance claims. We know that Corona Kavach was tom-tom. Many people around the country have bought Corona Kavach. The Insurance Regulatory Development Authority is sitting potentially on a bunch of insurance claims. Private insurers have sold insurance claims. I have myself bought a private insurance claim to top up my institutional insurance. But this data should be made available. We need to know what is the distribution of diagnostics and surgeries by region, by age, by location, and whether all of that resulted in faster release of the patient from the hospital, or did that result in more follow-ups? Unless we know that, how are we going to learn that? Who is going to give us that data? And that's something that concerns me humongously, because obviously that's my bread and butter in terms of research. But more broadly speaking, research does not stand in isolation. Research is to guide policymaking going forward. And if we don't get the data to take appropriate science-driven stances on our previously taking policy standing, then we might end up into a miasma of bad policy, and patient outcomes will continue to suffer going forward. And we don't want to go there. I mean, as Indians, we know that we are supplying some of the best brains to the world, whether it's in economics, in science, in technology. It's a pity to see that we ourselves in our own motherland are not able to use science and data to guide our own healthcare policy making. Whereas we have the Surgeon General of the United States as an Indian, Vivek Murthy. We have Nadella and Mr. Nadella and I'm forgetting the other guy who in the Silicon Valley, who are the big tech honchos. And there are several others, right? So the point is that we have the brains, but we don't have the ingredients, which is the data and the science, to drive healthcare policy making in the country. And that's really a pity. What else in terms of overhauling the healthcare ecosystem? I suppose the other aspect of the story here is how to think about creative entrepreneurial solutions which are hybrid in their nature. So in a world where 80% of Indian healthcare today is more or less privatized in some fashion, tertiary, secondary, primary, we have forgotten the important role of primary healthcare centers. We have forgotten the important role of public-private partnerships. Some states like the Mohalla clinics in Delhi have tried their best, but evidence is still out, not there enough yet to show how, let's say, a completely public model or a public-private model can actually help resolve some of these frictions on the supply side in healthcare. And I suppose one of the biggest opportunity, if you want to call it that, going forward to take forward Indian healthcare and hospital management is to think about creative hybrid business models where the regulator, the social planner is tying up with private entrepreneurs to take healthcare to the last mile and to the base of the pyramid, to the villages of India. One interesting way this, I think, can be solved is something that I saw Vinod Khosla, who is the founder and of Sun Microsystems and also angel investor in the Silicon Valley. He has taken charge of setting up, I think, 100 primary healthcare centers in different villages and districts of India. And he's asking for others to match his activity. Here is an example of a private high net worth individual joining hands with the government to set up healthcare at the last mile of the pyramid. And we need more such efforts. And we need more such efforts, not just in the hospital side of the story, but potentially also in provisioning medicines, in provisioning medical devices, in taking care of out of hospital care, in all the frictions that I mentioned, like solving misinformation in healthcare, in price transparency in healthcare, and all of these issues, or taking care of doctors or newly trained doctors or technology to solve the human capital issues. We need these hybrid creative business models in healthcare that is a combination of public and private business models. And lastly, my other comment here is that we need to think about what we are doing today in Indian healthcare, both on the supply and demand side, as not just India's problem, but the world's problem. So many of these problems are potentially scalable. For example, I mentor 2 startups for former students from IIM Bangalore and ISB. And one of them is working, the ISB student is working on a mental wellness platform called TikTok. Completely ignored. I mean, you and I know what kind of stresses we are going through while trying to live our pandemic-ridden lives. But who is talking about counseling? There's no social state provisioning either at the regional level or at the federal level in terms of the mental stresses that different types of constituents in the populations are going through, whether it's migrant workers, or whether it's students, whether it's corporate professionals, whether it's the elderly at home. Just, I don't see any visibility of that. And here is an entrepreneur trying to solve it. And he has a scalable solution on a digital platform. So why aren't we seeing an effort here to join hands with him and help him scale and take it to every household of India, rich and poor? And that's the direction I'm trying to offer in terms of trying to take care of some of these hidden crevices of Indian healthcare, which are not getting attended to. And this, by the way, is going to also be useful to look at issues in Indian healthcare which have suffered beyond COVID. Because of COVID and COVID's concerns, we have not been able to do enough of testing for tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is potentially going to make a comeback. People have delayed their lifestyle surgeries. Cancer care has been delayed by various households. So how can these hybrid business models help in solving the supply-demand gap that would be emerging tomorrow as we somewhat subside in taking care of COVID going forward? And that's something to be extremely worried and thoughtful about. And to me, the central solution is creative business models where the state matches, shakes hand with the private entrepreneur and takes healthcare to the last mile. Couple of other points I wanted to highlight here. The more I saw of the newspaper stories of how things are going awry over the second wave, And in terms of, let's say, the excess death reporting by states, every state is a culprit in how they have captured death or how they have not been allocated, being able to allocate beds and oxygen cylinders, etc. One of the critical things I was reminded was of a concept called right sizing healthcare, right siting healthcare. What is right siting healthcare? So basically, if you look up the definition in research, it's trying to right site the provisioning of health for a patient given the disease condition that the patient is suffering from, at the right location, at the right cost. So there are three aspects to right siting. You give the patient the right care at the right location, at the right cost. Easily said, very difficult to do. And this is what, by the way, a smaller nation, and we can argue that, well, Singapore can do it, but India has a far more complex issue, or New Zealand can do it, but India has a more complex country. But the broader idea remains, which is, let's try to see what we can do to right side healthcare, both clinically, geographically, and economically. And here the role of health insurance again comes back into the story. We continue to have frictions between the state and the center in terms of the universal healthcare coverage. We all continue to see the advent of private health insurance players, which are really doing a comeback during this COVID era. I wonder what all of this means for cost of healthcare tomorrow, especially in the absence of data for these corona insurance claims. We also know that in the second wave, beyond Indian cities, it's the villages and the smaller cities and the towns which have suffered. So there's a geography aspect here. And lastly, we also know that in terms of clinical care and protocols, we have been all over the place, to be honest. Let's be honest and accept that even our best of doctors have not been able to provide us appropriate science-based guidance when it was required. Now we can come up with a treatment protocol that we don't need to give favipiravir, we don't need to give ivermectin and all that, having endured all the travails and sufferings and desperation from the last 3 months. But this should have been done in January itself, even before the second wave had struck. So my point is that right siting healthcare is going to be an addendum, a critical addendum to the hybridized business models that I was talking about in solving Indian healthcare tomorrow. And lastly, because healthcare is a public good and yet it's being appropriated by private entrepreneurs, big and small, I think there will be continue to be questions. And remember, as I again want to remind all of you, healthcare in India is also a global issue. As a result of all of this stuff, what will happen is the ethics around healthcare provisioning will come back to us. And we need an ethical framework around the country, implemented and enforced, not just in paper or tweeted by some minister. That those days are gone. We need to really enforce ethics in our healthcare if we really want to salvage Indian healthcare and the population going forward. Amartya Sen had this very interesting anecdote in his book, The Idea of Justice, where he talks of a flute lying on the floor, and the flute is made by, let's say, person X. The flute is played well by person Y, and the flute could be used best by person Z, who can earn some living. And the discussion he was having in the book was, whom should the flute go to? Should it go to X, the maker, Y, the best player, or should it go to Z, who is going to earn a living? And that's, just imagine the flute as healthcare from our context. That's what we are struggling. Should healthcare be going to those who make healthcare? Should healthcare be going to those who are the right decision makers in provisioning healthcare, let's say the physicians? Or should it be going to the last mile of the pyramid, who can, if they are healthy, contribute meaningfully to the economy? And that's the other question here, which is, do we focus on health as a second order effect, having focused on the GDP pie and focused on economic growth, or do we focus on health in the beginning itself and then focused on economic growth going forward? And that's a debate that continues. If you look at the world economies, India also has a play in that debate. And I feel that debate is potentially resolved with what the virus has done in terms of ravaging economies like India, US, and several others, rich and poor. So if we have to take care of health today, because so many households, either directly or indirectly, are suffering from the COVID effects or the lack of care because of the non-COVID effects I talked about from tuberculosis of cancer and cancer care. And at large, this would have large productivity implications for the nation. People will not be healthy enough to work well enough or happy enough to contribute meaningfully to the economy, and there would be larger global GDP, global economic ramifications of the lack of productivity because of challenges to their healthcare provisioning. And I suppose governments at different states and center can take care of this issue with a more structural thought process in this redesigning and overhauling of Indian healthcare, if I may call it that. So with that, I'll just summarize what I said. I started with the big issue of the world, 1/6 of the population being in India. What we do today has an implication not just for ourselves, but for the world, both from dragging it down or dragging it forward, and also from a business perspective of interesting potential creative solutions, business model driven solutions. So there's an opportunity there. We can use this crisis to think of it as an opportunity. The second point I wanted to talk about was the supply and demand aspect of provisioning of healthcare, the frictions on the supply side, whether it's pharmacists, physicians, hospitals, providers, some of the big issues around taking care of our frontline healthcare workers, the role of stigma and misinformation, the role of data and science to guide evidence-based policy making and not policy-based evidence making. And then finally, we also want to pay attention to right siting of healthcare geographically, clinically, and economically. And lastly, not forget that the next 10 years could actually define the way Indian health and India at large could shape up for our children, thinking about the ethical implications of distributing healthcare going forward post-COVID. I'm done, and I'm very happy to take questions from here on.
So I would like to request Rao sir to present vote of thanks. Yeah, please.
Sir, it has been really a good 35-40 minutes presentation. You have given us the overview of the entire the problems you highlighted and what has happened in the last couple of months, and then how we should go about it. We kind of, policy input you have provided basically, because this, as you said, it's a global issue basically. It is not our own country issue, because we are aspiring to be an economic powerhouse, and we are living in a globalized world. Therefore, it is a global issue and very much human issue. And it's also creating a lot of havoc economically also, at company levels and corporate levels, even at individual levels. All vulnerable groups are suffering one way or other. This all we have been seeing it. We are very thankful to you, sir, for giving us a redesigning and restructuring of the whole infrastructure about the healthcare industry in India. As you said, Government of India was kind enough to allot last year they increased substantial allocation for education sector, but not the healthcare sector. I think now they also realize how important it is, because both education and healthcare has to go together. So healthcare is the upliftment of healthcare is the need of the hour, and particularly at a very primary centers level. As you rightly said, we also dealt about the negligence of other issues because of the COVID concentration. So that also leads to other social and health issues in the society. And you have dealt the importance of data science, and which is very essential for policy input. If the right data is captured and analyzed, and probably governments can probably formulate the right policy input also. And we also highlighted a private public partnerships and offering an ample opportunities for the entrepreneurs to get into this and dealing with the supply demand sides of the healthcare sector. As you finally said, it's the right care, right location, and right price. And though it is a difficult task, but one can aim it and try to do it. It's quite we all felt that it's quite a very comprehensive way of dealing with the current issues. Thank you very much, sir, for giving us such an insight into the whole working of healthcare industry. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I want to thank AMA for inviting me, and I really enjoyed this session. Thank you very much.